How y'all doing? This is K-Rigg, and I'm going live today to show you how to smoke some pork tenderloin on the K-Rigg Rev. So I'm going to go through a step-by-step process on how I do this, how long it takes, and then if you have any questions while I'm doing this, please post them up and I'll do the best I can to answer your questions. So here we go. First, couple of pork tenderloins. I think they weigh about 4 pounds total. All I use is some seasoned salt and some black pepper to season them. And so what I'm going to do is just go ahead and rub them down. And what you need to, with the pressure smoker, you have to be a little careful on the pepper, not as much as on the salt and other spices, but the pepper, because it will break up the pepper and then push the pepper into the meat very deeply with the smoke. So you can over pepper things very easily. So I just do a light dusting. And this is just coarse cracked pepper. And I don't marinate or anything of that nature. I just salt and pepper, seasoned salt. And so this should take around 35 minutes to cook. On the K-Rigg pressure smoker, the Rev, there's a temperature thermometer that we'll put in the thickest part of one of these, or the thickest one, and that's what will know how it cooks or how long it cooks. Going to go for a 145 temperature, internal temperature. The K-Rigg Rev comes with a pan that has a grill inside of it. You want to put the tenderloins or anything that you're smoking on the grate so the pan is there to catch the grease. You don't want it to sit in the grease. And then you always want to use the pan because you don't want the grease to go into the bottom of the chamber. Now on the chamber, you have the burner that's on the bottom, and then what we'll be doing is adding a handful of wood chips. It's all it takes to get that good, nice smoke flavor. I like to use hickory. So I'll put the wood chips in, put the pan in that has the tenderloins, put the temperature probe in it. Already have the burner on to warm it up. Takes about 5 minutes to warm up. And then we'll put this in, start it, and then the pressure will start immediately. And then we'll watch. I have a wireless temperature remote, and we'll watch the temperatures rise. It should take about 30 minutes. So I'm going to put the tenderloin into the pan here. And the Rev also comes with a secondary rack that will go right on top of this for larger meats like briskets or ribs. You can double stack them too. But it's just important to keep get the pan in there so that it captures the grease. You don't want the grease going down on the bottom of the actual pressure smoker, because then the heat will start to flash the grease, and you'll get a lot of the grease taste inside the food. So as long as you capture the grease in the pan, then all you'll get is the seasoning and then the wood chips. So I'll go outside and start this. So the door opens like so. Put the wood chips in. And then we'll put the pan in. Put the, get that. Always put the thickest part of the meat towards the back of the cooker, because that's where the hottest part is. And then put this in the middle of the meat. Close this up. We just keep the door somewhat open to start the motor. Starting the motor is pretty simple. turn on, give it a little bit of the propane, and that's it. And it's running. It's really quiet. It's only about 55 dB. Close this up, tighten the knobs, and then we put this weight on. That's actually what regulates the pressure. So right now we're already up to 5 psi. Let me get my wireless thermometer here. Get that set. We're already about 7.5 psi, and that's where we want to be set at, is about 7.5 psi. That gives you the amount of color and speed to cook that food. Right now, I don't know if you can see that, but we're at 77 degrees internal, and we'll just kind of watch that temperature go up. So if you have any questions, please post them up, and I'll be able to answer them while we sit here and wait. A lot of people say that with this smoker, you kind of take the fun out of smoking because you're not able to drink your beer or whatnot. I like to say, well, you can still drink your beer, but you're able to actually have edible smoked food while you've enjoyed your meal. Some people are concerned about how loud it is, but as you can see, it's running. We're right at about 8 psi, and it's very quiet. And really, that's as simple as it is to operate. All you have to do is put the food in there, put your wood chips to get your smoke, and then there's no temperature. It's just the burner's on. And then as long as you have pressure, then the time is the only thing you have to worry about. These tenderloins will take about 35 minutes. Ribs take about 25, 35 minutes, depending on how many racks you're doing. Chicken wings will take about 25 minutes. Brisket, 8-pound brisket in the Rev takes about hour 15. Brisket, anything that's beef related will need to sit for about an hour. I usually wrap it up in foil and let it sit for about an hour. I cook it to about 195 degrees and just let it sit. And then basically the pressure smoker can get it up to that temperature quickly, but it's resting for brisket to rest at that temperature is important to break down all the fats and the meats and juices of that nature. Pork, chicken, things in that nature, you can pretty much pull it off and eat it ready to go. Doesn't really need that resting time. But the beef really likes to be rested. So the pork tenderloin, the pepper will get pushed in, the smoke flavor will get pushed in. People ask about the smoke ring flavor or the smoke ring, and you don't really get a smoke ring with the K-Rigg because the actual pressure is pushing the smoke all the way through the meat. So you don't get that built up of a pinkish color on the outside because the flavor is just pushed up through the entirety of the meat. A lot of people want to know how I came up with this idea. I wasn't a big barbecuer before I came up with this idea, but I like to do it on the weekends, and it was always hard for me to plan a whole day to enjoy smoked barbecue. So, you know, there's some people out there that will smoke some barbecue for a little bit, and then I'll either put it in a pressure cooker or slow cooker to finish it off. And I was out to think, okay, there's got to be an easier way to do this for one process. Something that you could put the meat into it, start it up, and then minutes you'll be able to have smoked meats instead of hours. So basically that's how I came up with the K-Rigg. The K-Rigg original and the K-Rigg Rev, they work off a food safe motor that pressurizes the chamber and then high heat. The actual temperature of the chamber is around 450 to 500 degrees. But at the higher temperature or pressure, that temperature is not burning your meat, because the higher the pressure, the boiling point of the meat is increased. So then indirect heat, the burners on the bottom, it's creating an indirect convection oven type of situation. And this wood chips that are on the bottom of that chamber are creating a smoke, very clean smoke, that's getting pushed into the meat. K-Rigg original is all steel construction with powder coated chamber and powder coated stand. The original is quite heavy. It's about 500 pounds. Has to be shipped via truck freight. But it has 2 racks in there, and if you're the kind of guy that likes to do a 15-pound brisket for a lot of people, and if you want to do 3 racks of ribs, the K-Rigg original is where it's at. Not very mobile. Where you get it set, it's kind of going to stay. But the K-Rigg Rev came up with that for more of the it's really meant for more of the normal family. You can put an 8-pound brisket in it. You can do 2 racks of ribs when you cut them in half. And the neat thing is it's all aluminum. So the whole unit only weighs 76 pounds fully assembled. And both units come shipped fully assembled. But the K-Rigg Rev is perfect for tailgating, going out camping, RVing. It's so much lighter, so much easier to move around. A normal guy or lady can pick it up and move it. I use just a 2-wheel dolly to move it around. And it's all aluminum, so you don't have to worry about it rusting. Don't have to worry about it needing to be painted. And it's going to last a very long time. A lot of people ask, well, how long do the motors last? The motors are going to last a very long time also, because all it's doing is sitting there idling. So it doesn't really have much of a load on it. The oil is a food grade oil, so you don't have to change it, but I think it's about 50 hours of cooking time, or much even longer than that. And it only takes like a third of a quart to fill it up. Propane usage, the bigger unit here takes about, you could do about 6 hours on a barbecue bottle of smoking. And some people think, well, that's 6 hours, but you're doing ribs in 30 minutes. And then the K-Rigg Rev, because it's a little bit smaller, you can get around 7.5 hours of cooking time on a barbecue bottle. The pressure relief valve for the K-Rigg Rev, there's the weight that actually keeps the pressure to a certain level, and then it has a secondary blow-off valve, and then the engine itself will shut off at about 15 psi if the pressure gets too high. Same thing with the K-Rigg original. It's got a main pressure release valve, a secondary pressure release valve, and then the engine will shut off at 15 psi. So very safe. You don't add water to any of these like a regular pressure cooker. A regular pressure cooker, you add water to it to actually create the steam, create the pressure. And the downside of that from when you're barbecuing is when the meat's done, it will cook the meat quickly. But when the meat's done, it is gray in color. Well, that's the whole idea with these, was to produce something that gives you the color like you've been smoking it for 8 hours, but doesn't use steam. And also with steam, you're stuck at a certain temperature, usually about 250 degrees. Well, with this, I'm able to increase the temperature up to about 450 degrees because I'm not using steam as the pressure. And then it's a dry pressure. So when that is done, it's going to look like you've smoked it for 6 hours. So sitting here, what I'm checking on is just make sure that the burner is still running. You can see the heat coming off of it. Make sure that the pressure is still good. Sometimes if you don't really preheat the chamber very well on the aluminum one, you might have to go back over there and readjust the screws to keep the pressure, because the chamber is expanded and the pressure is starting to leak out. But usually if you preheat it, you don't have to worry about that. And you know, the engine and the burner runs off the same propane bottle. So as long as you have propane, it's cooking. And it's just sitting there, just going away. I don't know if you can see it in the background, but that's the K-Rigg food trailer. And that has the 5K on it, which is basically 5 of these chambers. And uses one engine, has several shutoff valves, but you can basically cook with 1, 2, or all 5 chambers at once. The neat thing with the 5K is you can put out a lot of food at the same time. You know, you could do 3 racks of ribs per chamber, so that's, you know, 15 racks within 35 minutes, 45 minutes of ribs. You can do 5 briskets with the 5K. So you can put out a lot of food with the 5K, which is on that food trailer. And you put a lot of food out with the K-Rigg original here. I've done, on the K-Rigg Rev, I've done 2 pork butts, 10 pounds, and it takes about, pork butt to 210 internal temperature takes about 2 hours. The brisket, of course, I've already mentioned that before, but it takes about hour and 15 to get about 195. I like to get to 195 on the brisket, and then wrap it into some foil and let it really just kind of get that 195 temperature, and then it slowly rises after that, but let it sit for about an hour, and then that brisket is perfect inside. If you go too hot on the K-Rigg, and I'm talking 200, 205, then the lean side of the brisket, or the tip, or excuse me, the flat, gets almost overcooked, and it just becomes almost like shredded beef at that point. A lot of people, for some reason, think that the meat comes out of this tough or not done, but it's a pressure cooking process. So just like what your grandmother used to use on pressure cooker or those Instapots, this meat comes out just the most flavorful, full, tender meat that you've ever put in your mouth. And then the smoke taste is a very smooth smoke taste that goes all the way through the meat. The spices too are pushed evenly through the meat, so that you know, it's just a same sort of bite throughout the whole eating of the meat. So if you have any questions, please post them up so I can answer them. If not, I'm just going to kind of just keep on talking about the K-Rigg and things that I've done with it. I personally like doing the chicken wings on them. I love chicken wings. That's really what got me on this process to begin with, was around the house, I wanted to smoke chicken wings, but I had to plan out 4 hours, 5 hours to do it. And, you know, if you got the foresight to do that, you can, but like a lot of us, by the time we have the idea that we want to do it, it's already an hour before dinner time. So with this, 25 minutes for about 7 pounds of chicken wings, and it's the best smoked chicken wings you've put in your mouth. And I personally don't like a very heavy smoke. The difference between a heavy smoke and a light smoke with this unit is really, I call handfuls of wood chips. I like to smoke with just one handful of wood chips. But a lot of people like a really heavy smoke. They like to taste the smoke. And 3 wood chips to me is almost too much smoke. So, I've experimented with about 2, for a heavy smoke, people like the heavy smoke taste. 2 handfuls usually gets you there. So the amount of wood chips, it doesn't use much because it's just using that smoke that's getting vaporized out of the wood chip to put into the meat. It's not using it as a heat source, so you don't need much. And as you can see, there's not a lot of smoke coming off the unit. It does a very clean smoke. But if you were able to go out there and smell it, I mean, it smells like the most delicious barbecue smoking outdoor barbecue pit you've been around. So very clean smoke. It's getting shoved into the meat, and it's a moist, tender meat. People still don't believe that when you even are here watching it and then eating it, they still can't believe how well it pushes that smoke in it and how great it tastes. I wish y'all could actually taste what I'm about to pull off here, because it will be great. So the K-Rigg Rev has an internal diameter of about 12 inches. The depth of it's about 14 inches. Comes with a pan that comes with a grate for the top and a grate inside, so you could double stack it. And your time really depends on what you're cooking. It depends on the weight of meat that you're cooking. So that, is about 4 pounds. It'll take about 35 minutes to cook. I'm seeing we're dancing around 97 degrees right now, and I'm going to shoot for 145 on the pork tenderloins. Same thing with this, the K-Rigg Rev. It's all dependent on how much you shove in there. I've done 20 pounds of chicken thighs in that before, and it takes about 45 minutes. But it's one of those things that, at some point you can put too much into it, because it's just the heat's not getting around all the meat. So you want to be able to put the meat in there so that everything is surrounded by airspace, and that's what gets your color. That's what keeps the food cooking at an increased speed, and really it's taken a lot of the guesswork out of smoking barbecue. It's simplified it. You just put the meat in there, turn the burner on. As long as you have pressure, like right now I'm sitting around about 9 psi, and then the pressure engine it's just sitting there running, doesn't use much fuel. The burner on this one is about 20,000 BTUs. That one's about 35,000 BTUs, so it's really hot. It's about 450 degrees. But you have to have that high heat to, one, get the color, and 2, to increase the cooking time that it takes. Because with that high pressure and the high heat, that's what's getting in there, really cooking that meat. So right now we're sitting at about 110. Another thing I notice on these pressure smokers is once you get basically above 100 degrees, it takes roughly a minute per degree. So you'll sit there and you'll watch that the temperature just creep up about 1 degree every minute. So when you get close to the time that you need to pull it off, you're watching it pretty closely. But you know, it's better in my opinion than sit here for 4 or 5 hours and then knowing that, okay, I got 10 degrees left on a regular smoker. Well, that might be another hour, if not 2 hours. For this, you're literally minutes, you know, 5 minutes from having to pull it off. So, but the neat thing too with this is because it shoves all the moisture in, you don't have to have as much fat. You don't put any water in it, and you don't have to have as much fat to keep the meat moist. With briskets, I like to trim out all the ductile fat in between the actual tip and the flat of the brisket. I go in there and actually fillet the actual ductile fat, which is the hard fat. Like if it's hard, I trim it out. And on a regular smoking process, you want that because that keeps the brisket moist. You're losing a lot of moisture in a regular smoking process, but with this, you don't need that. All that moisture is getting shoved in and kept into the meat. So all that ductile fat, all you're doing is actually just increasing the time that it takes to cook the meat because you're having to cook the extra fat. So I trim the fat back as much as possible. But with the briskets, like any other smoking process or any sort of meat, you want to start off with a good quality meat. Prime briskets are amazing in this, but also choice briskets are good too. And the difference between a choice and a prime brisket is the marbling, or as much fat veins basically that run through the meat fibers. And the prime briskets in this, that fat inside that meat, it makes sure that most of the meat has some sort of fat running through the meat fibers, and that moisture and that taste of the fat juices are within inside the whole brisket. Choice briskets don't have as much marbling, but still you're not drying out a brisket as quickly as you think you do. So I shoot for 195 on a brisket. Again, pull it out, wrap it up in foil, wrap it up in some towels, put it in a cooler. Basically, you want to keep it at that 195 to 200 range for about an hour, and that's what really allows that heat, because you basically, with the pressure smoker, have gotten it up to that temperature quick, but it still takes time for those meat fibers to break down. So that's where the resting comes in. Pork and chicken doesn't require that. You can pretty much pull it off and serve it. But the beef ribs, beef brisket, that's what takes that resting time. So I'm sitting here. It looks like we're bouncing off about 120 here. So we're getting close. K-Rigg Rev, as I stated before, it's all aluminum. Comes fully assembled. It ships UPS ground to your doorstep. So when you pull it out of the box, all you have to do is have a propane bottle, have the wood chips of your choice, and then add the supplied food grade motor oil that we supply with it, and we're up and cooking in minutes. There's no assembly. You don't have to bolt anything together. Everything is tested here, pressure, heat. So as long as the shipping companies do their job, it shows up ready to roll. K-Rigg Rev or K-Rigg Original shows up fully assembled also. It is shipped in a actual crate, wooden crate, and you're gonna have to have a couple of your buddies help you move it to the backyard. Where the K-Rigg Rev, you move it back there by yourself. So that's the neat thing about the K-Rigg Rev. Once we came with the K-Rigg Rev, I've cooked more on the K-Rigg Rev in a month than I probably cooked with the original in 6 months. So because it's so much easier to move around, so much easier to clean up, because that pan is dishwasher safe. It's a stainless steel pan, and you just pull it out and put it in the dishwasher, clean it up. Where the K-Rigg Rev has removable grates, but you treat them more like a smoker grates. You scrape them, clean them that way. But the neat thing is you're not having to, like with the K-Rigg, original, you have to pull off the meat with some barbecue gloves, things of that nature, to put it into another pan. Where the K-Rigg Rev, that pan just slides out, and then you can go and serve it from that pan. Now, that's the other thing with these is I always use insulated barbecue gloves because of the high heat. When you pull that out, the internal temperature of that pan is going to be about 400 degrees. And the same thing with this is, even though the internal temperature of the meat is only up to about 145, 119, the actual unit itself is very hot. So it's just like an oven, like a 500-degree oven. If you're boiling something, you want to make sure you got good protective gloves / oven mitts. So I use gloves, high temp gloves with this. It's very hot. But other than that, it's just, same precautions that you have to worry about with a regular smoker. If you have a firebox, that's going to be very hot too. Now, vegetables and potatoes that come out of this, in my opinion, are as good, if not better, than the meat. A baked potato in the K-Rigg, all you have to do is basically put some butter around it, salt and pepper, and you wrap it up in foil and you put it in there, and the pressure and the smoke is shoved throughout the potato. A potato takes about 30 minutes because it's so dense. But the neat thing that what the K-Rigg does that any other process doesn't do is the ability to shove that butter, shove that seasoning, shove that smoke all the way through the potato in one process. I don't think there's another machine out there that can do that. Like okra, asparagus, the vegetables absorb. Seems that they absorb the smoke and the seasoning a whole lot more than what meat does. So if you love smoked barbecue, smoked meats, this will make vegetables that you'll love also, because it puts vegetables on a different level. Fish, like you would do a lot of fish with this. I know Costco sells salmon that's already got the dill butter on it, and you put it in this, and it just shoves that dill butter inside that fish, that smoke. So if you really like that smoked fish, this will do it in 20 minutes. Now, some people ask about steaks. If you like a very moist, medium to well steak with that color, the K-Rigg does it fantastic. It will be the most moist, well-done steak you ever put in your mouth. Now, I know a lot of people out there are like, oh my gosh, what are you doing to a steak if you're cooking it well? But there are some people out there that like well-done steaks, and this will cook the most flavorful, most moist, well-done steak that you've ever put in your mouth. And a medium done steak will do the same thing. Rares, you're better off still grilling or flat iron grilling a rare steak, because by the time you get the color of the steak to where it's that good charbroiled look flavor, you've already gone up to about a medium cook inside. So you really can't achieve a rare steak in the K-Rigg, but anything between a medium to a well done is excellent on the K-Rigg. Done some pizzas, put a frozen pizza in there, and it doesn't really cook a frozen pizza much faster, but if you like that smoked meat flavor on a pizza, the K-Rigg will do that within 10 minutes. So it's a very versatile machine. And really it's meant to speed up the smoking process of meats that really take a long time to cook. I personally, like I said, love chicken wings. I love ribs. I like brisket. But if it was up to me, I'd be doing ribs and chicken on it, and this thing is awesome at doing that. On the ribs, same thing of how I season it here. I did Larry's seasoned salt, pepper, and then what I don't really worry about. A lot of people like to trim off that membrane on the back of the ribs. Well, with the pressure, it does that. It breaks down that membrane where you don't even know it's there. So I don't even trim that membrane off. And then all the ligaments and things of that in like a spare rib, they become edible because it's just broken down with the pressure. It's broken down those ligaments. Same thing with like a chicken leg. It just breaks it down and just it cooks it through to a point where you're doing the you're just chewing off the bone. Let me see here. So we're close. It's bouncing off about 132 to about 140. So I'll give it a little bit longer here. I don't know. Let's see here. Elapsed time. So it looks like we're about 35 minutes into it. So we're pretty close. So I'll let it sit here. Yeah, if you have any other questions, please post up. I'll be able to answer them here. I think the biggest thing with the K-Rigg is people still don't believe that it does what it says it does. Now the K-Rigg Rev, we have a 30-day no fuss return policy, so you can try it. Keep the original box. It comes in a very big protected box, and in 30 days, if you don't like it, you can send it back for a full refund. I haven't had that happen yet, and the neat thing about this is a lot of people take a great pride in their barbecuing, which I understand that. It's an art that takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of skill. And but this is really you can have barbecue when you come home from work. You can literally get home from work, put some ribs on, and by 6:30 you're serving delicious barbecue to your family, without having to worry about the moisture, worrying about things drying out. So it allows you to actually barbecue on the weekdays. That's the beauty of it, really, in my opinion, is that it takes a lot of that prep time, a lot of that worry of, okay, I got to have 6 hours. I got to get up by 2 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning to get the barbecue on. And then I don't know about y'all, but I've always been to parties that somebody's spent all day barbecuing, and then everybody's sitting around because everybody's expecting to eat at about 7 or 6 or whatever time, and it's still not done because it never gets done at the right time. So with this, it's 35 minutes, and if it's not ready, you just gotta wait a couple more minutes, not 5, not an hour or so, something of that nature. So it takes a lot of the stress out of barbecuing. I know a lot of people like to do that for the parties and such, but with this, it's easier to say, hey guys, we got 10 more minutes, and then it's done, instead of, hey guys, it's an hour, or you're serving it and it's not done and you're not happy with it. So okay, it says we're done, so I'm gonna go out there and pull it off. Get my gloves here. And now the neat thing about this is all you have to do is shut the engine down. You keep the actual burner going. So for some reason, if you pull it out here and it's not ready, it's pretty straightforward into keeping just taking the door off, checking it, and then putting the door back on and giving it some more time. So take the weight off to let the pressure release, and then you slowly just start undoing some of these knobs. Make sure you have gloves on. And another thing is this door has safeties on it, so that the door's not going to come off. You know, one, the safety in the 6 knobs keep you from undoing them all at the same time. And then also the safeties, you have to turn the door a little bit to undo the safeties. And the door is very light. And woo! That's done. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Pull the temperature probe out. And then we're going to come and bring this inside. Let me open the door here. And then I'll cut it open here for you so you can see what it looks like. Always remember to use gloves because this pan's very hot. Look at that. So I'm going to take this one off here. I'm going to cut it open. And you see the moisture just pull out of that. So I appreciate your time. And if you have any more questions, go ahead and just get on the website and call us. Email us. And happy smoking. Thanks for your time.